This is the Menopause Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Gordon. Did you know that menopause is not a medical condition? Your doctor or healthcare provider probably doesn't know this either. Now, I created the Menopause Movement to help women just like you decrease the suffering that menopause can cause. And the Menopause Movement provides world-class transformational education to help women make menopause the best time of their lives. And we've opened up a free video workshop for you to help you make menopause the best time of your life. Simply go to menopausemovement.com/workshop to sign up. Today, we welcome Terry Sidford. Terry is a sought-after motivational TEDx speaker, author, television host, and life coach since 1998. She's assisted scores of people and organizations in achieving their dreams, which she believes is her life's purpose. Terry's greatest joy has always been to help others unleash their potential and live life to the fullest. Based on her success as a professional coach and thought leader, in her research on the benefits of owning your courage, she has been asked to speak at many personal growth and business-related events. Terry spent over half her life acquiring the knowledge and experience that qualify her to guide others. The acquisition of those experiences is the basis for her book, 100 Hearts, Inspiring Stories from the Women Who Lived Them, a collection of stories of female courage in the face of adversity. Terry is also a certified passion test facilitator, accredited Pilates instructor, author of 2 books, and a popular newsletter that showcases her personal experiences and insights, as well as a regular contributor to a national wellness magazine, The Great Health Guide. During the podcast interview, we talk about Terry's path to coaching, power of reframing our past, the difference between thriving through adversity and not, my medical school journey, passion test facilitation and what it actually does for you, living outside our comfort zone, why courage is so important in achieving our goals, self-love as a key to action, and stay to the end to find out how to get started with forgiveness, even if you have a really difficult time with it. At the end of the episode, make sure you visit menopausemovement.com/blog, where you can find the show notes plus the links to the books and resources mentioned in the episode. And if you enjoy the episode, be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, so you're always the first to know when each episode is released. Thanks for all of the 5-star reviews. If you haven't left a review yet, please leave a written review on your podcast platform today, because when you do this, more women can find the podcast, get the help they need during the disruption of menopause, because no one should have to go it alone. Thanks again for being a part of the menopause movement. I'm happy to have you here today. Now let's get to Terry. Terry, welcome to the Menopause Movement Podcast. I'm really happy to have you here. You know, Terry, you're a TEDx speaker, you're an author, you're a television host, and you've been a life coach since 1998 when I was just 2 years into medical school. And so it's really an honor to have you here on the Menopause Movement Podcast. And you know, it looks like you're really into courage. And so
Yes.
Before we start talking about courage and menopause, what I'd like to know is, you know, what got you into that, and you know, how let's just hear your story a little bit. And if you have anything about menopause to throw in, I'd love to hear it.
I love this. And thank you so much for having me. There's so much I want to say. First of all, my journey has been an interesting one where I became a life coach after being a pharmaceutical rep in the corporate world, and, you know, working 60 hours a week. And realizing that wasn't my passion, became a coach, started working with a lot of people, and mostly women, and realized 15 years into it that majority of them were incredibly courageous and demonstrated courage, but didn't rarely see it themselves. And I was telling a friend one day about it, and she said, "Terry, you should write a book about that." I'm like, "A book? I can't write. You know, I wouldn't even know where to start. No, can't write a book." She goes, "I'll help you." And she did. And I wrote that book based on 100 surveys on the subject of courage. And it was fascinating. It was all walks of life, you know, all ages. And again, these women, many of them told their story for the very first time in the survey.
Wow. One thing I've noticed that is really interesting about, you know, I've surveyed tens of thousands of women in menopause. And one thing I've noticed is that women are really willing. they don't know me from anyone, but they're willing to pour their hearts out in the surveys and let us know, how menopause is disrupting their lives. And then like what their life would look like if they were able to get a solution. And, based on that, that's, the menopause movement offerings that we have, starting with our weight loss challenge. And what's really interesting is that when you give people a safe space to talk, and they're really going to tell their stories. And so you were able to collect these into a book. And what's that book called?
100 Hearts Spilled Out.
100 Hearts.
I just happen to have one, right here to show you.
Take a look.
So there we go.
All right.
100 Hearts.
100 Hearts, and that's available on Amazon. You can get it. We'll link it up in the show notes. But so these are stories of courage. So kind of in the vein of Chicken Soup for the Soul, more like, if you're feeling down and low, this might be a really good book for you to pick up and see, a way to recognize your own courage. And I just want to say, my personal story is one of resilience over and over and over again. And, starting with as a child with significant and violent sexual abuse, all the way up to, a bad marriage and just making the mistakes and then kind of failing forward throughout my life, and to where my son had cancer, and I stopped everything and helped. I mean, so when you talk about courage, I've never thought of myself as courageous. I mean, I entered medical school when my son was still getting chemotherapy.
Okay, do you know how many chills I have right now? You are the people that I'm talking about in my book. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. When, it's people like you. I mean, you're amazing. You're resilient. You're courageous. You're brave. All of the above.
Right. And the thing is that I don't see that. I just see, I did what I had to survive. I had to, make ends meet. I borrowed a lot of money so I could get through school and not have to worry. And I went to a surgical residency, and because I thought, this is how I'm going to be able to make money and free myself from, this marriage and make sure that my son is taken care of, because since he's had cancer, he's going to have some special needs and all these things. And I was able to reach all those goals, but I was never happy. Mm-hmm. And, I would set these goals and say, okay, when I get this, I'm going to be happy. When I get that, I'm going to be happy. Mm-hmm. And then I'd get that and I wasn't happy. I was like, well, what's next? And so then what happened for me is, as menopause hit me, I realized that I wasn't doing what I was put on the earth to do. And that I had been living from a program that I created at age 5 about how I could only make money if I was a doctor. And I had to break that programming. And I actually, I had grown a surgical practice. It was a multi-million-dollar surgical practice. And I'd grown it to 5 surgeons, including myself. And I had to let it all go.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a courageous act. And I can't believe that story. I mean, I think it's an incredible one. And when you share your story, and that's what I talk about when people share their story. I also have a Facebook group called Choose Courage Movement, and I do interviews. I share people's stories, because I think the more that we share our stories like you just did, the more people are inspired to do things they didn't think they could do. Right. And listening to other stories, they thought they were alone. They thought they were the only person feeling this way. Or maybe this is even going a little bit further. And I have my own personal story as well, which I didn't realize until I wrote the book. And someone asked me about my own courage. And I'm like, no, I don't know what to say. Yeah. And so I changed my personal story by sharing it as well, from being ashamed of my past to seeing myself as courageous. So not only sharing our stories helps inspire people, but maybe for the first time, they'll start to see themselves as courageous. And that empowers them to even be more courageous.
Yeah.
And take bold steps.
Right. And that's so important because, for me, being able to talk about the sexual abuse as a child, and I talk about it not for sympathy, I talk about it because those things happened to me and I had no control over it. And without those things that happened, I wouldn't have the resilience I have now. I mean, I was always the type of person who got up off the horse and just, got up and got right back on the horse. And I wouldn't let anything, break me.
Yes.
And that's not to say that I wasn't a broken child, because I was, and I had a lot of things to come through. There were a lot of, sexual abuse is tough, and
Mm-hmm.
and it really plays with our sense of self and our own self-worth and things like that. So if you're a woman who's been sexually abused, and that's probably 1 in 3 in America,
Yes.
then, I'm not minimizing that, but I am saying that experience is the thing. It's like a kiln or a fire that's going to make you better, as long as you choose to look at it from the position of strength. And for me, the biggest strength I had was forgiveness.
Oh, it's so true. So true.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the worst moments of my life are the most defining.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did we'll talk about forgiveness, because I think that's a really important subject that a lot of people ask me about. But I remember, when I did the survey, I was wondering, what is there something, a common denominator of something that makes people succumb to their difficulties and challenges, or things that have happened to them, and others that take off and they keep going and they actually thrive.
Yeah.
Some of them. And I really wanted to understand, what's the difference. And I don't know that I have the exact answer to that after all this research I've done, but I do know there's a will inside to survive and keep going. And others don't have that will they just don't think they can, or they might not have had the right people around them. Some people have it, I think, innately inside them their entire life. They're born with that. Others have other important people that have come into their life that gave them that hope, and then others don't.
Well, in my studies of resilience, I've read a lot about POWs, especially the Korean and Vietnam War POWs. And what's interesting about that is that the POWs who came in with this super positive mental attitude were the ones who broke. And the people who were able to be in the present and find something every day to look forward to, those are the ones who made it. And so positive mental attitude can help to a degree, but being present in the moment is probably the thing that is going to move us forward, especially when we're in some sort of traumatic situation. And, I can't say whether, what happened for me. I mean, my story is anecdotal, and, most stories are, because, they're just personal reflections. And I remember it through a filter. It's not like it's the truth. It's just a truth that I remember. And who knows, memory is faulty, but
yes, it is.
but at the end of the day, what I noticed about all of the successes that I've been able to create in my life, they're all based in action. And whenever I chose to become depressed over something or sit and wallow, there was no action. And I can say that I was the one who filed for divorce when my husband decided to leave my house. Like 2 days later, it was a month. The next, he left on a Friday. On Monday, he was served with divorce papers, because it was like, fuck you.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to move forward with my life, and of course it ended up being this really long, drawn out thing. And I'm not saying I wasn't sad, because I was. I mean, it was really awful. Nobody gets married thinking that they're going to get divorced.
No.
That's just not how it happens.
No.
But the point, I think, is that we carry in us, humanity, a lot more ability to do things than we may think. And we, like my mom gave up early. And she was a drinker, and she ended up dying of a disease called Wernicke-Korsakoff, and she had a dementia, and she just gave up early. She was a broken human, and that's sad. And we all see people like that, but it's almost like the universe put her in front of me so that I would not be like that.
Yes. Again, that's like, you chose to go opposite of that. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go down that road.
Yeah.
So what do you think it was in you that, I mean,
I don't know, because it's been such a long, this is a very different podcast from usual. And for you to ask that question, for me,
I'm a coach. So, that's what we do.
Yeah. No, that's okay. I'm a coach too. But I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So let me think on that for a second. What I have never really wanted to fail at anything, and I've always had this ability to reframe my failures. And I've had lovers in the past who said, I've never seen anyone have, just fall down and land on their feet so many times like you. It's like, your shit smells like rose. And, and I'm like, well, I don't know what that means, but an example is, I decided I wanted to go to medical school. And I was in the middle of this really bitter divorce, and my husband was acting really awful, and my son was getting chemo. And what I did was, my husband was just like, he had stalked the house or something. I was just really didn't feel safe. And so the next day I picked up my son and I went to Seattle to stay with my brother. And what happened was, I stayed with my brother. And I had called the doctor to say, can I leave for a week? Is it okay, with my son's chemo and whatnot? And, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And so I was okay there. And then I stayed with my brother for a week. And the whole time I was applying to medical schools. And I applied, and I got rejected because I went to this school called Harvey Mudd College, which is in Southern California. They don't have any grade inflation. And my GPA was 2.9, which is really good for that school.
Wow.
But, medical schools don't see it that way. And I had good MCAT scores and whatnot. So I was like, and I just kind of let it go. I'm like, I'm going to apply. I'm going to let it go. Rejection. I was like, shit, a lot of MD schools. So I applied to DO schools. Rejection.
Oh,
And there was there's a DO school in Pomona, California. It was 7 miles from my home. And they gave me an interview. I was like, okay, great. And then my brother died. My brother died on April 7th.
What?
And my interview was on April 15th.
No.
And my colleagues at work said, you have to cancel your interview. I said, no, I don't. I said, I won't. If I cancel this interview, I won't get into medical school. I know this to be a fact.
Yes.
And so I went to my brother's funeral. I went to my interview and I got waitlisted. I was like, okay, fine. And I started calling them. Like every other day I called, I said, listen, as the entry date got closer and closer in August of 1996. And this was in the days of the answering machines where you called up, you left a tape message, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I was calling my answering machine several times a day. I was calling them saying, listen, I'm right here. I'm 7 miles away. If you get a seat, I will drop everything and come and go to school. And so I made it a point, right? And
Yes.
one of those days, I pick up the phone, I listen to my messages at my home, and there's a message from them saying, we have a seat for you, and we need $1,250 right now to hold your seat.
Yes.
I left my office. I called my dad. I said, Dad, I need $1,250 right now. I don't have it. Please wire me money. And what he did was he sent it via Western Union. I left my office. I went to Western Union. I drove over to the medical school. I said, I'm coming. I'll be there in 5 days. I missed the white coat ceremony. I missed all that shit. And I just went to school. And
went straight to school.
I did 5 days before school started. And that's the power of manifestation. That's the power of self-belief. That's the power. So, and I don't tell this story much anymore because,
it's a great story.
I know, but I had to go to medical school because I had created this belief that the only way I could make money was to be a doctor back when I was 5. And
yeah, so there you go.
And so that subconscious program was running, and I was 31 years old. My son was still getting chemo. And I'll tell you what, that was back in the day when you could get C's in medical school and still pass. And for me, I was like, I just need to pass. That was because I had my son getting chemo. I wasn't able to go to class because my son was so sick. And I said, I just have to study these. I just have to pass. I just have to pass. And I never failed anything. And I got A's, I got B's, I got some C's, and it was okay. And I never really worried about, because a lot of the stuff in medical school was stuff you could just look up. I was like, why do I have to memorize this? This is stupid.
Right. I understand that too.
Yeah. So
it's cool.
So,
yes.
Yeah. And so that's what happened. And then during my my clinicals, it wasn't until 4th year that I realized that I was going to the operating room all the time. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm going to be a surgeon.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's kind of how I ended up being a surgeon.
It's an incredible story.
Yeah.
I mean, your story is what I live for.
Well, it's a good thing you're on my podcast then. But
Yeah, I
didn't mean to. Yeah, I didn't mean to. But what I want to hear. So I have to talk about my story.
But you had a belief and a persistence that was very obvious. You didn't give up. You didn't let obstacles get in your way. And I have some similar characteristics in me, and but I never saw them either. But No was like, okay, so how do I do it? And I was like, okay, there's got to be a way.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. When it comes to, like let's say you're in sales, right? Mm-hmm. And people who are in sales look at no as just another opportunity to get a yes, because it's not a personal rejection. It's just not this time, not right now, not and that makes like the whole sales thing not so hard. I have a couple questions for you though.
Okay.
So we can
All
stop
right.
making it about me and we'll start talking about you.
Deal.
Tell me what, you say here in your bio that you're a certified passion test facilitator. So what is that? What is a passion test facilitator?
I help people. It's a very simple but powerful tool that I was trained to do to help people find their passions. And we drill it down to their top 5. And then I help them with a process of how they start to create that in their lives.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's super powerful. Yeah, it's super, people love it. It's really helped people see that they have a vision for something that they never even thought of before. And I've helped people, get there. Like, they just wrote it down on their little test and then all of a sudden they're starting to create it.
Yeah. That's so powerful. And, women in menopause, there's this time, because it's so disruptive for us, we have this opportunity to really reframe our lives, recreate our lives, because we have a lot more free time. We're not carting the kids around, or we're not worried about our spouse's, work and all the things, we're not expected to take care of the people quite as much. And we have this ability to maybe pick up a hobby or a passion. And so taking a test, like a passion test, facilitation test, may really help. And, one of my friends told me the other day that over 90% of new businesses are started by women over 50.
Yes. Isn't that exciting?
Yeah.
That's exciting. So, I think you also have less to prove in a way. I don't know what it is with yourself or at least for me, after 50, I was just kind of like, now's the time. Now's the time to do what I really want to do. And I'm not going to leave anything on the table. And I really have done that.
Well,
after 50.
Yeah, when you stop worrying about what other people think of you, and you just let yourself get out there. I mean, oftentimes the thing that holds us back is the story that we tell ourselves about, what other people are saying. And I'll tell you, every time I get a hater, I'm so happy, because that means I made it. Every time somebody says, you're a jerk or whatever, I'm like, yes, can you tell me what is causing you to say something like that?
That's so good.
I mean, like, I put up my second vaccination photo. I was, happy to get that.
Yes.
I wasn't happy with the sickness that I got from it, because it kind of put me down for a whole day. I got a lot of fever and chills, but that just means my immune system was working, right?
Yes, exactly.
But I put it up on my Facebook page, and I get about 37,000 followers on the Facebook page. And I'll tell you, man, the anti-vaxxers came out in droves. They didn't come out for the first one, but they came out for the second one. And I'm like, I was just answering them like, listen, it's your body, choose or not choose, but we do know that these vaccines prevent 100% of hospitalizations. Doesn't matter which vaccine it is.
Right.
And you want to take the vaccine, you don't want to take the vaccine, that's okay. But, why are you coming on my page and preaching all this like conspiracy theory stuff? It's crazy.
Yeah,
I had to delete like 10 comments.
I know.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of it out there. Yeah. I'm dealing with the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But haters are great. Haters are just the ones that are like, they let you know that you've made it, because until you get a hater.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I love that. To tell people that it's really important that, you're going for it and you're getting out there. And I agree with you 100%. It's pretty fun. I mean, I've been living out of my comfort zone for some time now.
So let's talk about that, living outside the comfort zone. What does that mean to you?
That means doing something I didn't know that I could do, or it's the unknown, and going for things that I really don't even know if I'm qualified to do. Something maybe I've dreamed of, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't have the rule book on how to do it. And one example of that was, after I wrote the book, just writing the book was one of them, because I was a horrible speller in school, very insecure from my chaotic upbringing, so I had low self-esteem, low confidence, horrible in school. And so I wrote a book. I'm like, yeah, that's amazing. Right. And called myself an author. And it's really been a proud moment for me.
Okay, and then wait. You called yourself an author. So you just qualified that, you are an author.
I am an author. An author. But you caught something really important. Yeah. I still say it. And it's very emotional for me. And it took me a little bit after it was published, my book was published, to call myself an author. And that was a huge moment for me. And that was after 50. That was after 50. And then I wanted to get the message out, because I had such positive response. And someone said, you should start speaking. Speaking. I'm over 50. All those things in your head.
Public speaking is like the number one thing that people are afraid of.
It is.
Yeah.
And I didn't seem to be that concerned, but I wasn't sure if it was my thing. So someone challenged me to apply for a TEDx talk. And I'm like, oh, all right. She's a speaker who challenged me to do this. And I said, it's going to take me about a year probably to find one that fits, to get in, First one I applied to, they accepted it. They wanted me on the stage 4 months later.
Wow. So did you do an 18-minute talk?
I did. I did. Yes.
And did they help you frame it and all those things?
They did. They have great training.
Yeah.
Great training.
Yeah. There's a great book on it, like Speak Like TED or something like that. I can't remember.
It is. I have that one. Yeah.
It's a really good book. Yeah. So just we'll hook that one up in the show notes too.
Yes.
So let's talk about your TEDx experience, because one thing that people are really afraid of public speaking. And, I would say that I was afraid of public speaking. And then I, filmed a TV show and I was like, well, it's not that hard, and I had to get over my body image issues because I was a lot heavier than I am now. And I was like, okay, there's this whole thing about the camera adding 10 pounds. And that's something that I grew up hearing, when you wear, get in front of the camera, it adds 10 pounds. Yeah. And I was looking at stuff and I was looking at videos and I was looking at people and I said, people just look like they look on camera. It doesn't add any weight. It's just, you look like you look. And so I had to tell myself that because I didn't get to the weight I wanted to. And the time came up and it was time to start recording. And so, and actually, if you want to watch the TV show, you can watch it on the YouTube channel. I think it's episodes, I want to say 3 through 11 on the podcast. So,
oh, great.
Yeah. So if anybody who wants to go watch it, you can watch it there. Just kind of watch it in order because they work on each other. But anyway, so I had to reframe it for myself or else I would have been super shy on camera and that wasn't something I wanted to do. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And what we did on that show is it was called it's called the Dr. Michelle Gordon Show. But what I did was I took a bunch of women to Mallorca and we rode our bikes there and we talked about menopause and it was really fun. And I'm hoping to do another season in the next couple of years and we'll have a little contest and women who want to come along and yeah. So that's one of my things, we'll do some, maybe some hiking in the Himalayas or something. I don't know.
I love it. Love that.
But yeah, so I had to move forward. I mean, I was nervous about that, but I had to move forward and do it again. And while I've, only spoken in front of a couple hundred people, maybe once like live, we've got, a lot of subscribers now to the podcast. And every week I'm talking to people and I've got this, platform now. And the way I think about public speaking is very different now. And it's not something I'm afraid of. If I had to get in front of a bunch of people, I would just teach my stuff.
Well, I think that's the difference is when you're talking about something you're passionate about, something you want to share and you're yourself. It's really kind of easy. You have somewhat of a subject you're going to be talking about. I'm not the one, I have an outline, but I really like to just go for, the moment. And sometimes I change it up in the moment. And doing my TEDx talk really was the first time I'd ever shared all my stories in my life that were very vulnerable. And I'll never forget it, that walking off stage, knowing that all these people listened to my story and I finally shared my story. It was so freeing. And a moment I'll never forget. It really changed my life, that moment. And then I've been speaking ever since.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so how have you pivoted from speaking at live events throughout the pandemic?
Great question. I've been doing virtual speaking and that's what everyone's doing. And I just had to learn more of the technology aspect of it. But I really missed the one-on-one, looking at all the beautiful eyes in the audience and things like that. But that's okay. It's temporary. We're going to get back. We can still share our message that way. And thank goodness that we can, right?
Yeah.
I've been doing more podcasts.
Sure. One of my favorite things about teaching online though, is when I've got a room full of Zooms and I make it so I can watch people if I'm teaching and I'll call them out. I'm like, oh, I see you taking a picture of the screen. And, and so I feel it was really a good, for somebody like me who'd never really taught in front of a group before, it was a really good segue to live training. Once life gets back to a new normal,
Yes.
That because I was able to test out what works, what doesn't work. And I had a lot of tech glitches and things, and I just laughed them off. I mean, it was so funny because I didn't care. I'm just sitting in I'm sitting in my office here, and it's like, oh, well, let me just back up my PowerPoint. It just went like 25 slides ahead. Sorry about that. Let's go back, and so it's really great to just feel comfortable in your skin talking to people.
It is. I love interviewing as well, not just speaking. So I understand it's really cool when you can just be yourself and love what you do and really know that you're offering something that's valuable out there. And no matter what happens, technically, it doesn't matter. It's who you are.
Yeah.
That's showing up that people want to see. And that I have learned that over the years. I also did a short television show where we were interviewing people in my area and with a good friend, and we just stumbled upon it without any experience in doing it at all. And what I loved the most was just hearing people's stories. I mean, and trying to get more out of them from their story.
Yeah,
and I loved it.
I love hearing people's stories, and my favorite thing is when a woman who is really, really struggling with menopause, and we call that MENO-Misery here at the Menopause Movement, and somebody who is just really a woman who's really having a hard time, is beating down on herself, just is feeling down and low, feeling alone, and they come through our program called the MENO System, and they start to see, number one, they're not alone. Number two, that they have value. And number three, there are a lot of actions that they can take they're going to be their own savior. Nobody else is going to come and save them. And so what we do is we just kind of guide them through this phase so that they can see that not only is menopause not a medical condition, it's just a phase, a blip in your life. Even though the symptoms can last the rest of your life, it's not about that. It's about looking at your life from a place of power.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to be recommending so many people to you.
Oh, that's great.
I can tell when people are kind of struggling with this, and I have to gently, hey, what's happening in your life? And, you're on hormones, or, what's going on, or you're not on hormones, or, So there's a lot of people that I would love to send your way, but they're kind of introvert. I think they're a little nervous to even talk about it.
Right. Well, that's the thing. And that's why I called it the menopause movement, because menopause is like this secret society that no one wants to talk about. People think that it's this like shameful time that women are going to go through. And I look at it as it's the privilege of a long life, and I don't have to have a period anymore. No. And periods were just, oh my God, they were always so horrible for me. And so I was so happy. Like I tried bioidentical hormones and I got a period. I was like, I'm not doing that.
Not going there.
I was like, I'll suffer. I'll figure out how to get through the suffering. So, and I like to say the suffering is optional in menopause, and we help move people out of MENO-Misery, and we call it the MENO-Mate way. So when you come into our community, you become a MENO-Mate, and you have a group of women who are going to help you kind of manage your life. And so it's really great. And we help women, really reframe menopause. But on that, on top of that, we also help them lose the MENO-Belly, because the MENO-Belly is the biggest thing people complain about. After surveying tens of thousands of women, overwhelmingly, it's the menopause weight that really starts to get them down. And then that, they start talking bad about themselves and start comparing themselves to how they used to be and all those things. And so we really help them to reframe it.
So how do I sign up?
How do you? Go to menopausemovement.com/workshop. Workshop.
Okay.
I think it's WKSHOP, I think is where we're going to do it. We're still building it out, but we've got a video series all about how to kind of manage menopause. And then that leads off to a weight loss challenge that's very affordable. That's
exciting.
Affordable.
That's very exciting. Because I'm there definitely, and I can relate to all of this. And I think we're all very individual. I don't know if you have that experience too. That I'm sure that we're all deal with it differently.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, when it comes to menopause, there's no one size fits all answer, but we have challenges that, we love challenges because of how it works with our psychology that help us really take the action. And they're not hard challenges, like one thing a week. Let's make it, let's make it successful. Let's because when we lose the MENO-Belly, when we start to feel like we're getting control over that MENO-Belly, then we can start to look at, okay, what's next?
Yes.
What's next?
Yes.
And so that's super exciting. And that's
what a gift. What a gift.
I know. It's
what a gift.
It's taken us a while to get to this, the menopause
Mhm.
movement. We were more about some other things first. And now, 'cause I thought it was more about community. I mean, it's been a journey. It's been
I'm
a
sure
journey,
it
like
has.
figuring out the message of the menopause movement. But,
Mhm.
we want to help women. We want to help as many women as we can. And it's our mission to help 1 million women this year. And so,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Game on. I'll help you. I'll help you.
Yeah. And so we
Yeah.
want to help as many women as we can. And if the biggest challenge is weight, then let's address the weight, and then the rest of it we can deal with afterwards.
Yes.
So that's
definitely.
super cool. So, all right. So we talked about, how you got to collecting stories of courage, but I want to know from you, like, why courage? Why is courage so important to you?
This is a story in itself.
That's great. I want to hear it.
Yes. I've never, I did not identify the word courage in my own life until I was coaching women, mostly women. And I had to put a word, I had to identify what I was seeing, and that they were doing things, overcoming things, multitasking, kind of like you. And they still were hard on themselves. And I would say, I would want to tell them something like, you are so strong, brave, resilient, all that. But courage, I kind of looked up the word courage, and it fit for me in describing these women.
What's your definition of courage?
Courage is facing your fears or things or the unknown or things you don't think you can do, and doing it anyway. You just keep going and go, okay, thank you very much, but I'm going to keep going. And what I've also learned that 98% of what we fear never happens.
Yeah. That's just our mind.
It's our mind.
Yeah, that's just our mind.
Yeah. And it can really paralyze people.
It can. Well, the mind's job is to protect us. It's to think and to protect us. And if we think that there's a danger out there, then we're going to want to shy away from it. But, I think there's a long kind of quote from Mother Teresa, about people are going to be mean to you, but, do it anyway. Just suck it up and do it anyway. And she doesn't say that, but so it's a paraphrase, but there's this whole thing about love them anyway and forgive them anyway and, move forward. And so courage is this thing that helps us to be brave in the face of fear. But, if we can redefine fear as just something that we're hardwired to pay attention to because of growing up with saber-toothed tigers, right? And they're not, and we also, fear is a lot in our minds, and I like to call it false events appearing real.
Yes, I love that one. I've heard that one. I love that.
Yeah, I got that from Jack Canfield.
Yes.
But fear. We only have, I think, 3 fears, right? That we're hardwired to have. And it's the fear of loud sounds, the fear of falling, and I can't remember the third one off the top of my head. But we're definitely, maybe it's only 2. The fear, because when you look at a baby, right? What is a baby afraid of? A baby is afraid of falling, and they're afraid of loud sounds. Yes. And those are the fears that we're born with.
Yes.
And if we can start to look at fear from that perspective, and fear is it's like our emotions telling us, well, go gentle, but still go.
That's a good,
cautious.
That's a great line. That's a great line. It's true.
Yeah.
And actually looking at fear is kind of our friend in a way, because it's telling us something, and just kind of stop and say, what is it telling me? And is it true?
Right.
First of all.
You always got to look at it as if it's true. And when it comes to anxiety and menopause, a lot of women develop anxiety. They've never had anxiety before, but they start to develop it. They start to second guess themselves. They start to worry about anxiety. And there is a podcast called Why Do We Get Anxiety in Menopause that I give you a framework how to manage it. And the main thing is to look and see, is this true?
Is this true?
Is it true?
Byron Katie, have you worked with some of her?
I've never. I know people who know her, but I've never even read one of her books.
I use some of her processes to identify limiting beliefs or beliefs that aren't true. And she has a little formula that, you first ask, is it true? How do you know it's really true? And who would you be without that thought?
Right. Yeah.
There's these like things,
Yeah, but our subconscious mind is so powerful, because if we decide that we want to see something from a different angle, all we have to do is start looking for truth of that. And our subconscious will actually start showing us, we can create our own reality in that sense. And I'm not talking about all the woo, like new age stuff, although a lot of that's true. What I'm talking about is if you change your mind about a circumstance, then you can start looking for the reality that that circumstance is true. And the example I like to give is I had this employee, and this employee was horrible. I mean, horrible, disparaging me, just trying to get out of the contract, all these really awful things. And I said, okay, I have to, and taking up a lot of my headspace, I have to say, okay, how do I want to reframe this? Because I don't really want to let this employee go yet. They're, kind of productive and, that sort of thing. And so I said, what am I looking for? And so what I chose to do was like, this is my lesson for how I feel when I have to fire someone.
This is my lesson.
Yeah. And you know what? It's really worked out because I've been able to use those feelings and let people go because they weren't a good fit. If somebody's not a good fit for my organization and they're in my head more than a couple times when I wake up, then it's probably, and they're starting to ask a lot of questions that are inappropriate or push back against authority, then you know what? They're best served to not be in my sphere. That's fine. And we let them go. And so that was a really great lesson for me. And just being able to reframe it saying, you know what? Thank you for coming and being an employee in my organization and teaching me what I have to recognize so that I can fire fast now.
Beautiful. Just beautiful. I mean, reframing is incredible. And I
so
work with my
powerful.
clients all the time with that. And it's amazing how if you could just, change something just a little bit, just a perception, it can look completely different.
Change your whole life.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
For sure. And it's easily said, more difficult in execution and better done with someone like you as a coach who can look, because when it comes to coaching yourself, oftentimes we're stuck inside the container. Mm-hmm. And one of my mentors, James Wedmore, talks about how when you want to coach yourself, it's as if you have two cups. So I've only got one here, but I've also got so here's a cup and here's this is what is this? An hourglass. So basically you're going to have two cups, and what you're going to do is you're going to look at both these cups from outside, and you're going to pour your problem into one cup, and then you're going to look at it. And when you do that, you can be much more objective, and you can actually be the observer, because it's really hard to self-coach if you're not an observer, if you're stuck inside the problem.
Yes. Yeah. I love, I never heard of that tool.
Yeah.
But I'm always trying to get them to step back and look outside of themselves from a different perspective, or their thoughts or their perceptions.
Remember, that voice inside your head is not you.
No. I don't believe everything you think.
Well, you are the observer of that voice, which is really meta.
It really is. It really is, isn't it?
Meta.
I know. I've been reading this book called The Seat of the Soul, and it talks a lot about that. I don't know if you've read that one, but
I haven't. But
it talks a lot about that.
But it's true, because we are the observer of our thoughts, because we are not the one creating those thoughts. It is the thoughts come, because of the subconscious programming we've allowed to happen. And the one thing that's true is when we can get into a decent meditative state, or we can access the subconscious by asking questions, we can change our subconscious programming.
Yes.
And I mean, that was so powerful. I mean, over the last 4 or 5 years, I've had so much personal growth just because I've been able to kill a lot of those beliefs that I had growing up.
It's everything. I mean, it really is. It's huge. And you want to transform yourself or change things, your life. It's really identifying beliefs that from the past that aren't present right now. They're not real right now. They're just from the past. And how do we reprogram them? And just like you said, it takes time that they've built up to be inside of us, but then it takes a little bit of time to, first of all, just identify that they're not true anymore, and then believe it and practice believing it. But getting into that present time, that meditative state really has been key for me as well.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good information out there that, you and I both know, but this is really key to.
Yeah, it is key. And if you want to learn how to get into that meditative state, I think Joe Dispenza offers.
I was going to mention him.
Yeah, he offers some really great books. I think one of the best ones is Becoming Supernatural. Mm-hmm. And Joe Dispenza is he's very woo. I mean, he sees beings that are benevolent. And so there's some really wooey things about him. But let's say you're religious and you worship Allah or you worship Jesus, you can still do this. You can still do this. It's just a matter of praying and asking, is setting your intention in your prayer. Prayer does not have to be a supplication like, I'm so sinful and forgive me. Prayer is more along the lines of, show me where I can find the courage to do these things I need to do. And, and asking that greater, that thing that's greater than yourself to help you. And if that's God, if that's Allah, if that's, Krishna, it doesn't matter. I think they all lead to the same thing.
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. Yes.
So I wanted to ask you also about if I'm a woman in menopause, all right. So we have obviously we have a big listening, a lot of women listen to this podcast across the world or watch it on YouTube, and they're saying, well, that's all well and good for you guys. You guys are coaches and you take chances and whatnot. What would be the smallest step, the step that's impossible to fail, to help a woman who's really kind of beating down on herself because, she feels she's let herself go. She feels like she's gained a lot of weight. She doesn't know where to start, just to find that little sliver of courage to take the next step. How would you help somebody do that?
Well, just in that scenario that you just gave me, I would say self-love and forgiveness.
Okay.
And I think if you can't get past that, then it's difficult to do something that feels uncomfortable or go past what you think you deserve or what you can do. So you really need to start with really forgiving yourself for being human. We're all human. And I like to say that, I feel like I'm a spiritual being. I'm not religious. I'm just spiritual. That's just my path. And that we're living in this human body that we're having to deal with. And I think we're here, to learn a lot of lessons from it. And man, it has given me lots of lessons.
Yeah.
And menopause is one of them. So I just start there. Just start like, how can
great.
I fully, radically, I like to use the word radically love yourself. What does that look like? What would that be like? And how could you forgive yourself for doing the best you could in the moment with what you had, what knowledge you had at the time? And just love yourself. Start over today. Every day's a new day to start over. Every single day is. It's an opportunity.
No, that's great. And remember, everyone, that guilt is blame turned inward, as is shame. And you don't want to be shooting second and third arrows at yourself whenever you have a pain. It's important to really learn to let things go. But when it comes to forgiveness, do you have a process that you find works to help people forgive? Because we talk about forgiveness and we say you've got to let it go and you have to forgive. And forgiveness is usually in a spiritual context. And I said in the beginning of the podcast that forgiveness was key for me to let go of my abusers. And what I realized, and this was back in my 20s, was that as long as I held anger toward those who abused me, I was, number one, staying in the past, and number two, giving them power over me. And so I forgave for myself. But in terms of a process for forgiveness, how do you teach that? Because I think that would be a really beneficial practice for our listeners.
I'm asked this quite often, and I have one particular person that I've been working with that's really challenged right now with this. And I think it's depending on what your definition has been of what forgiveness is. And you kind of have to step back and be willing to have a new definition, first of all, of what forgiveness means and the power of it. And it doesn't mean you have to forget what happened.
Right.
What happened. It doesn't erase what happened. It means that you release yourself from the negative energy, like you said, the anger from it by forgiving this other person. And otherwise, that anger and that negative energy will be harming you. And why would you ever want to give your power away to that person that you feel didn't do something right or harmed you or whatever it was? Why would you ever want to give them your power? The best thing you can possibly do is let life take care of them. Everybody, karma, whatever it is, right?
It goes around, comes around, man.
Yes. And kind of believe that will happen, if they don't take care of whatever they've done. And then just start taking care of yourself. And the best, I don't want to use this word, but the best thing you can do for someone like that is to be your best self. And show that you actually became a better person and you didn't let that act or that whatever happened destroy you. That's the ultimate description of forgiveness. I know it's not easy to do, but maybe just reframe what forgiveness is.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And when you say about, action and it just made me think of how, getting into medical school and getting through residency and all that was like payback to my ex.
You're
And
right.
and yeah,
Yes.
and when he
Yes.
didn't, when he didn't want to pay, like we had a very long, drawn out divorce and custody and a whole bunch of crap, and it was really sad. And at one point, I realized that I was making more in a month than he made in a year, and I said, you know what, I don't need him at all.
Yeah.
And
How
it was
liberating.
that was such a, and obviously, not, I mean, I'm a surgeon, surgeons get paid. And so it isn't like, this isn't, what I was making isn't normal money. I mean, a lot of people, are never going to make the kind of money I was making, but I cracked the code on how to make money, and I felt really good about it. And I was super happy. And that was great. And I think that it gave me a lot of freedom. It gave me a lot of freedom to not worry about anything my ex had to say about anything. And that was
great
really
feeling.
huge. Yeah,
Yeah,
it really was,
yeah.
and I was able to put my son in private school against his wishes, and I was able to,
Wow.
help him grow into the young man he is today because he went to that private school.
Yes.
And he was so disconnected with where our son was in terms of his life. Like, he's like, well, he's got to stay at home because of his friends. I'm like, he has no friends. So I think that success is a really, really great revenge. And, if you're into, I mean, at the end of the day, I wouldn't even call it revenge. I was just like, I was able to just like, have a nice life. I don't care if I ever see you again.
Yes.
And that was so freeing. That was really awesome. Yeah.
It is,
Yeah.
And it's success personally and professionally. If you can use these moments in your life and these people to make you a better person and learn something about yourself or life or whatever it is, and take something away and say, I'm not going to let this person take I guess that's the only thing I keep coming around. Don't let them make you less of a person.
Right.
Take
you don't want to give your power away to them. And
No.
that's, especially if you've been in a narcissistic, abusive kind of relationship, you've been sucked into the narcissistic weirdness of supplying them. And what narcissists do is they tend to like isolate you from other people and beat you down and kind of basically say, you need me, and all these weird, it's just so sad.
Yes.
And when you start to take your power back from a narcissist, that they'll really try to beat you down. And when you can start to love yourself more than anyone else. And that's so weird to say, but so true and necessary.
It is.
Because when you get, and I'm still not there. I mean, I still have a lot of those things, like when I was little and you're so fat and you could never do this and all those things. So I'm not there yet, but it's so important to treat yourself as you would your own child and be encouraging and say, yes, you can do it. Or as your own coaching client, and give yourself those same encouragements. And so if I can leave the audience with anything today, it's that nothing is holding you back except for your thoughts.
Yes. I'm going to say hallelujah again.
Yeah. So,
they can be very entertaining. They can be very entertaining.
They can. Yeah, yes. That's true. So our time's almost up, and I want to know if there was anything else you were hoping to share today.
I think we covered so much ground, and I think we're on this. I just loved our conversation.
Yeah,
there was so much depth and great tools and information that people can take away. But both you and I know, first of all, watch the thoughts. Don't believe everything that you think. That's important. Right. And you can change them. You can change them, and you can, step back and look at them, and that you're much more powerful than you think you are. I'm here to tell you that can happen. I've seen so many people, and so have you, right? So don't ever give up. Just keep going, persist, and find other people out there, other people that will support you, because there's plenty of them that will.
Yeah, there's a lot of women in the MENO-Mate community who can who can really lift you up for that. And where can people find you?
TerrySidford.com. And all my information is there. And that's Terry, Terry.
All right.
And Sidford.com. Thank you so much. What an honor it has been to have that conversation that we've had today.
Well, thanks so much for being a part of the menopause movement today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Did you know that menopause is not a medical condition? Most doctors don't know this either. I like to say that menopause is the privilege of a long life. And to really take hold of our lives in menopause, we have to unlearn what society and the medical establishment has told us about menopause. This is why I've created this brand new course called Understanding Your Hormones and Managing Your Menopause. I want to show you how you can get on top of your menopause right now so that you can start to see it as the best time of your life. Now, this course is valued at $500 and is in the beta testing phase. And we're currently accepting applications for women to test it out for us at no charge in exchange for feedback and testimonials. But the best part is, because you're a podcast listener, you can bypass the application process and go straight to the front of the line. To register right now, simply visit menopausemovement.com/hormones, and we can get started together right now. Remember, you can get started right now at no charge to you in exchange for feedback and testimonials when you go to menopausemovement.com/hormones. And I'll see you inside the course. Thanks so much for being a part of the menopause movement.